It is much more than a physical movement. It is the journey of life and a virtual stimulation of the journey to the next life.
It is a simulation of the great gathering of all people after resurrection in the day of judgment.
Pilgrims do Hajj following the footsteps of Prophet Muhammad, Abraham, and Ishmael, peace be on them.
As one of the 5 pillars of Islam, performing the Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca, is the duty of all able-bodied Muslims to perform at least once in their lifetime, as long as they have the financial means to do so.
The Hajj takes place from the 8th to the 12th during the 12th month of the Islamic lunar calendar.
Pilgrims from all over the world travel to the holy city of Mecca, located in Saudi Arabia.
Preparing for the Hajj.
Your intentions must be to perform the Hajj solely for the sake of Allah. Considerations of pleasing or impressing others with your show of piety should never be a factor.
All Hajj expenses must be paid out of money obtained through legitimate means. Money obtained through illegitimate or doubtful means is not acceptable.
All of your debts and financial obligations must be fully discharged before you start your journey and, where necessary, a written acknowledgement of the transactions obtained for future use.
You must make an honest effort to resolve your outstanding differences with others and seek forgiveness from those you may have hurt in any way in the past. This is based on specific instructions of Rasul Allah, Paba, and must be followed for the Hajj to be meaningful.
Because there's so much involved, and for many a once-in-a-lifetime voyage due to time and money constraints, it is recommended that pilgrims work with a specialized travel agent. The agent can coordinate everything from flights, daily meals, and transport, and even arrange for a sacrifice on your behalf for the 10th day.
A female pilgrim must travel in the company of her husband or a maram. A maram is a member of her immediate family with whom her marriage is expressly prohibited by the Sharia. A female pilgrim who is 45 years of age or older may be allowed to travel with a group of pilgrims without a maram if a family in her group sponsors her.
Pilgrims must prepare appropriate documentation and receive required vaccinations.
They should memorize and fully understand all the prayers that are required to be recited throughout the Hajj.
And they should prepare for the physical exertion by walking or jogging 30 minutes to an hour a day.
Upon arrival in Saudi Arabia, before one can enter the holy city of Mecca, they must report to a Maqat. A Maqat is a checkpoint where Muslims must stop and enter the state of Ihram before entering the holy city. There are 6 Maqat stations that surround the city to cater to pilgrims entering from different regions. Entering the state of Ihram involves physical and mental tasks.
A Muslim in the state of Ihram must not tie any knots or wear any stitched items. Sandals and flip-flops must not be stitched either, and should allow the ankle and back of the foot to be exposed. They must cleanse and purify their bodies before donning the Ihram garments, which is 2 seamless pieces of white cloth. Whilst in the state of Ihram, a Muslim must not use any scents on the body or the robes, including deodorant. If the robes come into contact with scented liquids intentionally, then a new ihram must be worn, or the Hajj may be invalidated. Women must utilize strict modesty as no cosmetics or perfumes are allowed.
During the pilgrimage, sexual activity, smoking, swearing, shaving, and cutting one's nails are forbidden. Other forbidden activities include killing animals, using profanity, fighting, and taking oaths, in addition to any other regularly prohibited acts. Males should refrain from looking at women. All flirtatious, arrogant, and rude thoughts are to be put aside, as well as the day-to-day life. Muslims must forget about studies, business, and relationships and focus on God.
Once pilgrims have entered the state of Ihram and declared their intention of performing the Hajj, to the guards, they may enter and begin to perform the Hajj rituals.
First is the tawaf, where pilgrims enter Islam's most sacred mosque and approach the Kaaba to kiss the black stone. If this is not possible, then they should face it and point at it. Then they must perform 3 fast laps around the Kaaba, keeping their left shoulder toward it. This is followed by 4 slower laps. The Kaaba is believed to be the first mosque and is what Muslims are facing when they pray from all over the world.
Once complete, the pilgrims proceed to Sa'i, the second ritual. This involves walking back and forth between the hills of Safa and Marwa. 7 laps are to be completed. 2 green lights on the path mark a section where you are encouraged to run if able. Along the route, water stations provide water from the Zamzam well for pilgrims to drink.
This task of the Hajj is symbolic of Abraham's wife, Hagar. When she ran between the hills of Safa and Marwa, desperately searching for water to provide her infant son Ishmael. Upon praying for God's mercy, Ishmael's heel struck the ground and the Zamzam well sprung open for them.
The next day, pilgrims proceed to Mina, where they spend the night in prayer.
لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك.
The following morning, they proceeded to Mount Arafat, where they stand in a vigil until after sunset. This is near where Muhammad gave his last sermon, and is a very special part of the Hajj.
After sunset, the pilgrims proceed onward to Muzdalifa.
Muzdalifa sits between Arafat and Mina, and it is where the pilgrims will spend the night on the ground under the stars and collect rocks for the following day's ritual.
The next morning, after ensuring they have collected enough stones, they proceed back to Mina to perform the Rami al-Jamarat. This involves crossing the single-tiered Jamarat bridge and stopping only at the largest of 3 separate walls to cast 7 stones. In the days following, pilgrims will return to cast stones at each of the 3 pillars to signify the 3 times Abraham was challenged by Satan as he was on his way to carry out the sacrifice of Ishmael as commanded by God. Throwing stones at the pillars symbolizes throwing the stones at Satan himself.
Once the stoning is complete, it is time for the Eid al-Adha. This involves an animal sacrifice to commemorate the story of Abraham and Ishmael. Traditionally, the pilgrims would perform the slaughter themselves, but nowadays it is common for pilgrims to buy vouchers authorizing a centralized butcher to slaughter an animal on their behalf. Animals, such as camels, can count for up to 7 pilgrims. The meat from the slaughter is packaged and donated to the needy.
Once the sacrifice has been completed, halak is performed. This is where the men get their heads shaved.
Pilgrims then proceed back to Mecca to perform another tawaf.
Pilgrims then return back to Mina, where they spend the 4th day stoning all 3 Jamarat walls.
The 5th day, pilgrims once again stone all 3 Jaramat walls before they return to Mecca for their final Tawaf al-Wida, otherwise known as the Bid Farewell.
Muslims return home, changed forever, with greater clarity and humility, feeling closer to Allah than ever before.
Only someone who has been there can truly understand the feeling of brotherhood and awe.
It enhances the feeling and knowledge of the greatness of Allah.
It was the most tiring, but the most awe-inspiring episode which has fruitfully guided our life in this world.
वो तन्हा कौन है अल्लाह अल्लाह बादशाह वो कौन है अल्लाह अल्लाह मेहरबा वो कौन है अल्लाह अल्लाह क्या ऊंची शान है अल्लाह अल्लाह उसकी सब निशान है अल्लाह अल्लाह सब दिलों की जान है